So I was done, but then I just realized I needed to add this. In the first part, I mentioned that Honshin not only means your original mind, which we discussed is like clarity and awareness and all the positive qualities of compassion and wisdom and equality, those things. So when you have Honshin, that's operating more off of your liberated nature, your Buddha nature, right? It's awareness, clarity, compassion, sense of the emptiness, the shunyata, the quality, um, and there's just a sense of virtue as opposed to negativity. When you lack Honshin, then like it discussed in the Bansen Shukai, there's the mind of the sage and then the mind of man. Well, mind of the sage is like Honshin, right? In the sense that you have the option when you're living here on this earth, you have this option that you can either have Honshin or the mind of the sage, which operates off of the positive qualities: clarity, wisdom, awareness, emptiness, equality, compassion. Or you can have the option of operating off the human mind, which is not your nature. See, Honshin is your real nature. The mind of man is not your real nature. It's a corruption, so to speak. It's a flaw. It's a false nature. That is where you're addicted to sight, sounds, taste. It's where you have hate, anger, greed, envy, pride, all of these negative emotions and rampant conceptualizations, and you're always hungry and you're always selfish. So you have those two options, Honshin or the mind of man, right? The deluded mind, you can have either Honshin, the real mind, or the deluded mind. Right? Deluded mind is all the negative emotions and a lack of clarity and belief in ego and belief in intrinsic existence. Or you can have Honshin, the mind of the sage, which is a sense of emptiness and clarity and compassion and wisdom and all of these positive qualities. So the decision about which one you have is up to you, where you either decide that you're going to be virtuous and wise and follow the established path of liberation and sort of enlightened way of being, or you decide that you're going to sort of just just dive into your negativity, dive into your deluded mind, dive into your false mind. You ultimately make that decision. You either decide whether you're going to be virtuous or non-virtuous. You ultimately decide whether or not you're going to sort of follow the path of your true nature, or you're going to let yourself be just lost in delusion. That's ultimately your decision. However, what this Fukushima Ryu is directing the student is to follow the Honshin, follow their true nature, and to walk away from their deluded mind. Also, Honshin in this case, complementary meaning, means the actual intention of the system. So when it says if you use shunyata, then you will not lose Honshin. On one hand, it says it means you will not lose your true nature. But also, it can mean that if you operate off the principle of shunyata, then you will not lose the original intention of the shinobi. Because the original intention of the shinobi is based on Honshin. And because it's based on Honshin, that's why it exists. In the Hachiman Daibosatsu tradition, it's taught that Hachiman Daibosatsu, well, Hachiman used to be, Hachiman was originally an emperor who passed away, and then he arose as Kami, Hachiman. And then as Hachiman, he was the god of archery and loosely, quote unquote, the god of war. When Buddhism came to Japan, he converted to Buddhism. So this Kami converted to Buddhism, and he became a bodhisattva, or bosatsu, Dai Bosatsu, great bodhisattva. In that Hachiman Dai Bosatsu tradition, it's taught that Hachiman Dai Bosatsu gave these sort of, it isn't, it wasn't ninjutsu, because the word name ninjutsu didn't exist this far back, but it's the same thing. It's covert warfare, espionage. Gave these covert warfare or covert techniques to the Genji clan, and there's a particular line that he gave it to, and then it spread. in that system, it says that the reason, of course, that it was given was because it was a alternative to warfare. It's like using dirt to clean off dirt, right? Because in all of these traditions say that shinobi no jutsu came from the god realm. So it comes from the god realm and the Ashura realm, or the demigod realm. Warfare is not intrinsic to human beings. Actually, in the Buddhist teaching, it says that for humans, we have birth, old age, sickness, and death. We're born, we die, and we get old, and we get, we're born, we get sick, we get old, we die. That's what's guaranteed for us. Those are our guaranteed sufferings. Warfare is not one of our guaranteed sufferings. Warfare is actually from the Ashura realm, and then also somewhat to the God realm, to the Dewa realm. So therefore, warfare was taught to human beings by the demigods, because the demigods are always interacting and meddling with human beings to try to get us to do things for them, right? And so, for example, like one demigod might, tell a human being, oh, if you just pray to me and you get followers, then I will teach you methods to force them to follow you. And that's like where warfare comes from. So then, in the Hachiman Dai Bosatsu tradition, it says that, that these methods are to counteract that. In other words, that whole thing I talked about where you're supposed to use ninjutsu or shinobi no jutsu in order to obstruct the plans of the enemy, to keep war from taking place. It's also what Sun Tzu has said as well. You're supposed to use espionage to keep warfare from taking place. That is honshin. That is the honshin of the shinobi. The whole point is you are trying to bring an end to the conflict and mitigate the politics, etc., 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 at the minimum loss of life, at the minimum cost to society, etc., 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 right? And in order to do this, you have to have honshin. You have to understand the correct foundation of shinobi, which we now know is entwined with shunyata, emptiness, and those 5 constant factors, and benevolence, which can be translated as compassion, benevolence or compassion, and wisdom and bravery. And again, remember, the bravery that we're discussing isn't like running at the enemy with a sword screaming. It's that bravery that we discussed that is correct to ninja, to shinobi. That bravery is, as I discussed in the previous earlier, was the ability to remain calm and relaxed and clever in the most dangerous and tense of situations. So, all that skill, all of that shinobi ability, everything that we just discussed, is also rooted in the original intention of shinobi, which is the honshin of shinobi. So, if you as a human being have your honshin, your original mind, the ninjutsu as a thing has its own honshin, its own original mind, or its original intention. And that what we discussed. So, the principle of emptiness is connected to both. And I made a video a long time about like shinobi no ho and shinobi no jutsu, and how shinobi no jutsu are the techniques and shinobi no ho is the principle. So in a way you can understand that shinobi no ho is the emptiness aspect, it's the profound aspect, it's the principle, it's the honshin aspect. And then shinobi no jutsu are all the techniques and the spells, etc., etc., etc. The spells sometimes get categorized into shinobi no ho because you're not supposed to study the spells until you are much higher up, until your honshin and everything is stable. Then you can use the spells. So usually that's why the usage of spells is usually in many traditions tied to being more advanced to the higher level, right? Because if the spells get used later, and later is when you're stabilized, then you can see how there's a connection between the spells and the higher level. So that I wanted to sort of add on is the honshin of ninjutsu is maintained with the principle of shunyata. So again, the principle of emptiness is the all-ruling king. It's the kingpin principle. It's the fundamental principle, which maintains the honshin of your mind and maintains the honshin of the art, the shinobi art. And if you maintain the principle of shunyata, even if open conflict takes place, you can maintain the honshin of your mind and the honshin of the art. All right.